o'clock. This meeting is called to order. Ray, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll start, as always, by reviewing and approving minutes of meetings, beginning with the April 23, 2012 work session.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved by Mike, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next, we have the minutes of the April 23, 2012 regular meeting.
I will move to approve those as presented as well. Second.
Again, moved by Mike, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Then we have the April 23, 2012 non-public session.
Somebody else.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Dick and seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. And finally, the Town of Plymouth Selectboard special meeting on May 7, 2012.
I move that we approve those as presented. Second.
It's been moved by Ray and seconded by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I will abstain from voting. I was not
As will
present. Those minutes are approved. Announcements. The Select Board will meet on the following dates. Regular meetings at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 29th, 2012, and Monday, June 11, 2012. Work review sessions prior to the regular meetings will start at 5 p.m. All of the above meetings will be held in the Town Hall unless otherwise posted. Weather observations for the month of April are available in the Town Hall. Citizens wishing to be listed on the Selectmen's agenda should notify the Town Hall before 12 p.m. on the Friday before the scheduled meeting. Town offices will be closed on Monday, May 28, 2012, in observance of Memorial Day, and the Plymouth Memorial Day Parade will be held on Monday, May 28, beginning at 10:30 a.m. Lineup will start at 10 a.m. at the Armory on North Main Street. Okay, moving on. Under updates, just like to discuss briefly the letter that we had discussed at our last meeting concerning the rights-based ordinance and who we were going to address that to. I know that we still need to approve the final letter, but we did have a citizen who recommended that it be sent in addition to elected officials in New Hampshire, that it be sent to Quebec's Premier and the CEO of Hydro-Quebec, and I was wanting to discuss that and see what everybody thought about that.
Just a clarification, Val. There's a draft of a letter here which came from that citizen, which is a different letter than the one we wrote, I think.
Right.
Is that, are these two separate issues?
I don't think they're two separate issues. I think that draft is something that we probably ought to take a look at, but I really think that the letter that we wrote in the first place is one that would serve the same purpose, although we might include some of the language from this letter in it.
We discussed this briefly in our work session, and one of the things Ray said was that he thought that this maybe was going a bit beyond our scope by writing to the government of Quebec, and I think I tend to agree with him. I think that I would prefer, unless somebody can convince me otherwise, that we keep this to state officials and perhaps others in the state, but I don't think that we really want to communicate with the government of Quebec on this. That would be my feeling.
Charlie, what do you think?
I agree. I think we're getting into a realm of diplomacy that we have no business in. I think it might be appropriate for us to work through the state officials.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. I think that we can keep it. And then the only other question is, who at the state level do we want to, I mean, we had talked about the governor.
Well, we might also communicate with the State Department if we're talking about the diplomacy would be at a different level, federal to federal, or federal to provincial.
Well, I think that, first of all, I like sending it to the governor, our 2 reps, our state senators. So I think we can probably all agree that, they're appropriate?
Yes.
And then beyond that, your issue is, what about somebody at the EPA, or, well, I don't know, who's the Department of Energy, or FERC, or somebody like that? I think,
I thought more of the State Department. If you want to make a point, I'm not too sure that they would respond to any suggestions from us to tell Quebec we don't like what they're doing, but
I don't claim to be proficient in the knowledge of the authorities here, but I don't believe that the State Department is in a decision-making mode in regards to this
It's the
project.
Department of Energy.
Department of Energy.
Yes.
or I think maybe the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is another one that may be involved, is that?
Not on the transmission line
No.
project. They do on the contract, and the contract's already been approved.
So
It's signed off on the framework for the business contract.
Department of Energy then?
Yeah, I would support the Department of Energy. I'm not sure whom within that, but perhaps the individual that conducted the hearings that we had last fall would be appropriate.
Yeah, I can look into that.
Yeah. I guess from a format standpoint, I wonder if that should be something that's addressed in the header, or if that's a copy to the Department of Energy, and I'll leave that to somebody else's good judgment.
The other thing is, isn't it the Site Evaluation Committee in the state?
That'll be the state of New Hampshire, but it has to get past the Department of Energy for the presidential permit has to be issued before the Site Evaluation Committee gets involved in it.
So it's premature for them.
Premature for them, yes.
But maybe we would send it to them if the time came that they had, but we can talk about that when the time comes.
You could send it to the head of the Public Utilities Commission, which has the administrative responsibilities for putting the Site Evaluation Committee into play. So perhaps the head of the PUC would be appropriate in the location.
I'd be
Yeah.
in favor of that. So we have our reps, the governor, the PUC,
Yep.
and
DOE.
DOE.
And again, the other question that Ray brought up is, should these be addressees, or should we be CCing all except for, say, the governor?
It seems like, to me, like the governor ought to be the primary focus.
Yeah.
And then the others maybe
I
will
like
be
that
copied.
thinking. I don't know if it's right, but I like it.
Okay. Charlie?
one of the things that occurs to me is that we should express our thoughts to whoever put this together, because I think if they rethink making contact directly with the province of Quebec, as opposed to through the channels that we're talking about, it may be more effective if all the people who they're trying to get to go along with this would move in a different direction. Because I think I agree that we're really stepping out of line when we start to communicate as a board of selectmen with the province of Quebec or a foreign government. But the effect of a lot of towns, say 25 or 30 towns, sending this letter to whoever would be a lot more assuming we can get them to shift gears along with us. We should express our opinions.
Well, you know, I think one thing is that the results of the rights-based ordinance, that's a matter of public record. All the towns did their town meetings.
Yeah.
That information is available for anybody who wants to compile it, to put it together and, you know, make their case for a look at how many towns voted. I mean, I think that would be...
So what we're getting at, it sounds like what, Charlie, what you're getting at is there a means by which that this information might be communicated to Quebec without us doing it? Is that...
No, what I'm trying to, whoever sent this,
Yeah,
we should advise them that we're not really, we feel we're a little out of line to communicate directly with the province, and that they may, we would suggest that they may want to rethink their approach to this.
Not have individual.
It's a volume type of thing.
Right.
We get everybody to go our way or valid.
well, we should do that. We can talk to him
Yeah.
about the approach.
That's a good point.
I don't know, who sent this?
I got it from Peter Martin, so I can go back to him with that response.
Yeah.
Paul, did you have something you wanted to add?
I think you should be sending it to the governor, CCing it to the senator and the 2 reps, and I would stop there. Because you've got committees meeting at different times, and I think you can put inside your letter a request for them to forward your concerns to the proper committees. We're trying to sit here and guess who's the proper
That's
committee.
true.
You could be sending it to a committee that's not even involved, and it gets hung up there, and
Makes sense.
the senator and the rep are on
Makes
top
sense,
of it.
Yeah. So,
Makes sense. As
in
you
the
do it.
final revision to the letter, if you could get that to us
Yeah.
with some language to that effect, that would be great.
So I will sort of include a request or permission to forward it on to the regulatory authorities or some such thing.
Yeah.
Any and all.
Yeah. All right, moving on to correspondence. We have a letter from Howard Burnham regarding signage at the intersection of Bartlett and Yetton Roads. Essentially, his letter says, it's the letter that you considered last week with his reappointment to the zoning board. The letter states, "The second reason I am writing is to see if the board will consider changing the signage where Bartlett Road intersects Yetton Road. For many years, I have felt that a yield sign would be a better choice than a stop sign at that intersection. As an example, there is a yield sign at the intersection of Texas Hill Road and Old Hebron Road, and that intersection has a lot of natural obstructions. There are none at the intersection of Yetton and Bartlett." I think that that's something that needs to be considered by the Highway Safety Committee. So I would ask for a motion to table that request.
I'll make that motion to, do we table it and refer it to the
And
Highway
refer
Safety?
it to the Highway Safety Committee.
I'll second that motion.
All right. It's been moved by Mike and seconded by Ray. Is there any discussion?
Just that earlier in our review of this, it was noted that as part of the safety committee work, that would of course include our highway department head and also the police chief.
Police
So-
chief, right,
So we'll have the benefit of their insights too.
yes. All right. There's no further discussion. Let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion is tabled and referred to the Highway Safety Committee. Okay, moving on. Chairman's comments. The Select Board meeting agenda will be posted on the Town of Plymouth website on the Friday before a scheduled meeting in order to be more current. We had been trying to post it on Wednesdays, but typically the agenda items are not received until close to the Friday deadline. So Friday afternoon, those will be posted. Committee reports. Charlie?
The only thing I would report is the group of 3 towns is going to meet on the 17th. They haven't set the time yet, but to go over This is the Holderness version of the Time Warner agreement. We're going to go over this, and I haven't read it yet because I just got it, but I'll read it over, and then we're going to try to come up with common goals and objectives, at which point we'll come back to the individual boards and get ready to go to start face-to-face meetings with Time Warner. But that's set for the 17th.
Right?
Three to report on. First, on behalf of Mike, and to also provide an update, I attended the Energy Commission meeting week before last and provided them with a detailed update on the work that is taking place here in looking at the streetlight situation. And the update essentially broke out three components of that effort. The first is to take a look at the, I use the phrase no-brainers, where we've got duplication of lighting in several instances, and we'll be removing the lights that just don't make sense to be in place anymore. The second is we've got 18 sodium vapor lights that are of a higher aluminum that we're going to be replacing, and I am working with a representative of the co-op to do the preliminary engineering to pull all of that work together under one work order, with the understanding that when that is complete, they'll take a look at perhaps revising the cost estimates that they had given us earlier, with the belief that if they can put it out for contract, that the price may come down for their work. And thirdly, we'll be taking a look at a couple of test locations within the town to take a look at all of the other lights that we may want to address in the future, very near future. And I failed to mention that those first two elements, we'll be doing that work during the course of between now and the end of June, so the work will actually be accomplished in the field by the end of June with those first two components. The third component, we'll be looking at a couple of test elements, and there were a couple of suggestions that I and the co-op will be taking a look at to just kind of serve as a model of what maybe can occur within a community. And one of the things that we're going to take a look at is in the village area, in particular the residential area and the proximity to where we've got a lot of student housing, to see what that might entail. So I'm going to do a couple of estimates and workups for that. The next item is I did attend the school board meeting last week. It was my first opportunity to attend the meeting. And one of the outcomes of that meeting that is helpful to share here with the select board is they did enter into a contract with Constellation Energy for the supply of their energy needs at the elementary school. And the information that was used to make that decision indicates that there's a fairly substantial savings of several $1,000s over the projected 3-year period of that contract, in which they'll be procuring all of their energy needs and moving away from the co-op. They had a good discussion of that. I'm going to share with Paul the actual projection sheet that they've got and the work that they went through, because this is certainly something that Paul can undertake on behalf of the town for all the resources that we've got here. And lastly, and I'll defer to Dick on this, I attended the planning board meeting a couple of weeks ago also.
Can I just ask a question on the Constellation Energy, just the elementary school, not the high school?
This was just the elementary school.
Separate boards.
Separate boards. I'd approve that. I'd be happy to share the sheet if anybody'd like to see it.
All right, Mike?
I have only to report that I attended the open house at the Water and Sewer District offices, and if anybody hasn't seen that, it's quite an impressive job they did on that building. It's not only much more energy efficient, but it also has that large solar array of photovoltaics on it that you probably see as you go by. And you can go inside, and they have a little iPad that shows how much electricity it's generating and what the building's net consumption is over a period of time, and it's pretty fascinating. We probably all shouldn't go down there first thing tomorrow morning, but I bet they would be glad to have any of the residents of Plymouth come and take a look at that, because it's very impressive and educational.
A couple of things. The Chamber met last Friday, and another good meeting. They reported on a good year last year, and they're very pleased with the work of their executive director. And they also had a good turnout at the annual meeting dinner a couple of weeks ago. Planning board, I think the primary thing is the work is gearing up for the master plan, and Sharon may want to add some light onto that, but we're going to get going on that. And then just Conservation Commission meeting, they're meeting tomorrow night. But I will just sort of put a plug in for the commission. My wife and I went up Plymouth Mountain yesterday from the parking lot over on Old Hebron Road. And it had been a while since I'd been up the mountain. And I mean, the commission, I think, is doing an excellent job in maintaining that trail, marking that trail, doing pickup of trash both along the trail and in the parking lot area. And it's, you know, it's a beautiful hike. The vistas from the top there are just gorgeous, and it's a great asset for the town. And, you know, I was thinking coming down that, you know, sort of making connections between Plymouth Mountain and that asset and trying to maybe integrate that into the work that the Chamber does as far as just promoting the town and the information they pass out, you know, at the Tourist Information Center. I mean, I think it's, you know, again, something that we should be, you know, proud of and utilize. And again, I think the Commission's doing a great job with it.
And I have nothing to report. So. Moving on to other business, Mark Scarano, the Grafton County Economic Development Council. Please come up. Your choice.
Okay.
You don't see it enough.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be joined by Professor Craig Zamzow, who is head of Plymouth State University Small Business Institute, also their MBA program. And as the program we're talking about is a true partnership between Grafton County Economic Development and Plymouth State University.
Welcome.
Thank you. I believe we were here, and Ray, your memory might be better than mine, probably 8 or 10 months ago, to provide you a little bit of an update on what we were doing regarding the Enterprise Center at Plymouth, a new business incubator, again in partnership with Plymouth State University. It does say on the agenda that we're here for better buildings, but that may have been for a different... it's not us. But regardless, the Enterprise Center at Plymouth project is moving forward very well. And there's two parts to this. There is a real estate component to the services that will be offered to assist entrepreneurs as they are starting up their high-growth businesses. And the real estate component is being headed by the Grafton County Economic Development Council. The most important part of this project, the networking, the mentoring, the services to the incubator tenants and clients, is being provided by Plymouth State University. So I wanted to make sure that Professor Craig Zamzow was here to talk about and provide an update on what they're doing for, again, the most important part of this project. So, Craig?
We, out of the real estate, will expect to have around 6,000 square feet that can be leased to incubator tenants. We actually already have one or two signed up for sure for about 1,500 to 2,000 of that square feet. Existing company works in Holderness, and they have 7 employees
Currently.
and they expect to add several more. The programs that we'll be offering will be a wide range of the kinds of services that we're doing now: one-off consulting, SBI projects, where we use our students to do consulting projects for small businesses that exist today and need some assistance going to whatever next level they're going to go to. We'll have a focus group room which we can contract with businesses in the area. There isn't such a facility north of Manchester at this time. We'll also have labs for creating video, similar to what we have on campus in the production area for creating videos that can be put on a website. And we'll also have training, sales training capabilities, where we'll use students and professors to train either business to business or business to retail salespeople in the area. So it's a broad range of services that we're providing. We'll also have subscriptions for people who do not live in or reside in the facility can avail themselves of the services online and can also drop in occasionally appointments. We'll have workshops going on a regular basis. So it's really a true incubator, but more so because our space is a bit limited. With only 6,000 square feet, we can't occupy and have that many tenants in the building itself, so expect to be virtually supporting a lot of folks that don't reside in the building. We have a search for the director. Our goal is to have the new director on board the 1st of July. We have somewhere about 20 applicants at the present time and counting. And so that's our goal, is to have the staffing set by this summer, break ground this summer, and then open the facility a year from this summer.
So the Grafton County Economic Development Council, as part of this, is the real estate component. Again, it's just a component of the overall services provided to businesses and entrepreneurial companies. The GCDC, since we talked to you last, has now received $1.5 million worth of assorted federal and state grants that we're pretty proud of. Unfortunately, with a new construction starting up, particularly in the commercial sector, nationwide, the cost of materials is also going up. And we're discovering this, fortunately not too late, but we are seeing spikes in some costs with the expansion of our incubator by 25,000 square feet over in Centera Park in Lebanon, and we have that in partnership with Dartmouth College, not unlike the partnership we have here with Plymouth State University. In that case, we were able to buy a large amount of drywall just in time, but I don't think we'll be as fortunate for this, and therefore we're approaching you and asking you to apply for a community development block grant on our behalf based on the jobs that a company is going to be creating that will be moving into our incubator. The company is called Narrative One. They are currently in Holderness. Narrative One is owned by Tom Armstrong. He is a local entrepreneur, but someone who has been in the area for generations. His family has owned and operated a successful real estate firm, and for funds, he decided one day that maybe he would fool around on his computer and try to develop a better commercial real estate software appraisal, software appraisal for software. And it's taken off, actually. And the very company that Craig is talking about with 7 employees is Narrative One. This is one of those companies that almost started in the garage, and now it has become very successful. This is a company that already has a track record of sales, which for a relatively new company, I believe it was founded 4 years ago, it's pretty exceptional. The sales have been going actually quite well, but that is going to be something that they will need to manage. And as such, we have made them the first client of the Enterprise Center at Plymouth, and they have been meeting with Professor Craig Zamzow and his great crew of
We just actually
folks.
completed a Small Business Institute project for them with 2 of our MBA students, and they turned in that project about approximately a month ago. And it was designed to be a comprehensive growth plan for Tom and his company to go from where they are now, 7 employees on. Their sales are actually approaching I shouldn't probably disclose it, but they're very significant and expect to grow significantly more, especially with the assistance that we have given and will continue to give them. So they're particularly pleased about the idea of having that relationship with us and having experienced help already, and then when they move in, there'll be a continuity of that help.
They're currently in Holderness, next to the post office. They're quickly running out of space. They're looking forward to moving into the Enterprise Center at Plymouth, in part because of the real estate, but mostly in part because of the brains and the technical assistance, counseling and networking and mentoring that the Enterprise Center at Plymouth, in partnership with Plymouth State University, will be able to provide. The Community Development Block Grant Program is a federal program that provides block grants to states. It was founded in the early 1970s as a relief program for people of limited incomes. It is exactly that, block granted money to the states. The states set up, based on their own criteria and their own priorities, the rules surrounding the Community Development Block Grant Program. Within the state of New Hampshire, that program is turned over to a quasi-state entity called the Community Development Finance Authority, who I think you're familiar with. CDFA manages the New Hampshire Tax Credit Program. It also manages the Community Development Block Grant Program. Community Development Block Grants for economic development projects require that there be a ratio of jobs to the actual grant money coming out. In fact, the ratio is $20,000 in CDBG grant money for one job being created. Because Narrative 1 is signing up to create 7 jobs over the next 2 years, we're looking to have the town of Plymouth apply on our behalf for a grant of $140,000. Municipalities and counties are the only entities within the state of New Hampshire that can apply for community development block grants, and because these are public dollars. And they would go to you as a recipient of this competitive grant program, and then you would subgrant the funds to the Grafton County Economic Development Council. Now, the CDBG program can be used in many ways. In most of the time, it's used as a loan program by your regional development corporation. We are one of 10 regional development corporations. We regularly have community development block grants subgranted to us by municipalities and Grafton County in order that we can loan out to businesses that have promised to create jobs. In this case, we'll be using the money as a straight grant because we are a nonprofit, and the funds will be used for construction-related purposes at 149 Main Street. Because Narrative 1 is creating the jobs and they will be locating on site, we can use those 7 jobs, translated it into $140,000 of grant money, for construction-related purposes. Part of what municipalities and counties are required to do in order to apply for CDBG monies is to hold a public hearing. And part of this would be having a public hearing, hopefully before the midterm of June. And I think you have a select board meeting on June 11th. And we're hoping that you will authorize a public hearing at that time. Community development block grants are, there's 2 parts to those. There's an application process, and then there's an administration process. The application process is something that we usually like to have professionals write for us on our behalf. And as such, we've asked Pat Garvin with North Country Council, the Regional Planning Commission, to write this on our behalf. She is a former employee of the CDFA. She understands the program considerably and has a good track record of successfully writing these applications. The second part of the Community Development Block Grant program is an administrative phase in which a grant administrator is hired by the town That would not be us. A grant administrator would be hired by the town to make sure that the town is in compliance with the grant funds, as well as making sure that the jobs are being reported to the CDFA in order to close out the grant program. That is something that you can either subgrant solely to your regional planning commission, or I guess you do have the opportunity to put it out to bid. The administrative phase on that. Typically, there is also $1,000 to $2,000 that goes toward the municipality for its work in grant administration. So that is a little bit of background in terms of that.
We have just come off of about a year's experience with a community development block grant, which has been, to put it mildly, a big headache for the town. And I guess what I am asking you is, what will the town's responsibility be as far as, I mean, clearly we have a grant administrator for that grant, but our town employees are being tasked beyond reasonably on that. And
I believe those were ERA monies, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act stimulus monies that were used for, is it Better Buildings? Is that the program? Oops. Well, again, this is not related to the stimulus monies, which had an inordinate amount of reporting and oversight, much more than normal federal grant responsibilities. I will say that the Community Development Block Grant Program, this one in particular, is something rather commonplace. We have done these as recently, actually we'll be closing on a grant that will be coming to us. We'll turn into a loan this Friday with the town of Bethlehem. We just completed another one with the town of Littleton. We did 2 last year. We've done them through Grafton County. These are very different from what you have with Better Buildings, and these are ones that are much easier to administer and much more routine, if you will.
okay. Other questions?
No, ma'am.
I mean, I absolutely
I hear
think
you.
this project is a great project, and you know, Paul has had correspondence from Patricia Garvin. There were a couple of phrases in it that we had some concerns about. One is that if the project is approved by CDGB, then the grant writing fee of $4,000 will be paid to NCC as part of the grant. What if the grant project is not approved?
Grant writers for the Community Development Block Grant write these at their own risk. It's something that, at least when it comes to myself, I recognize that, and therefore we rarely put in fact, we will not put in an application that we feel is not competitive to a certain degree. Because we want to make sure that those that spend their time and energy writing grants on our behalf or your behalf stand a better chance of receiving those grant monies that they, for the time, getting reimbursed for the time they put into it. We would not be going forward with a CDBG grant that was uncompetitive or that perhaps did not even score appropriately in order to get it in front of the CDBG Advisory Board. This one did score above their minimum amount, so it is something that they will consider and take up during their, ideally, their July meeting.
And one other phrase that gave us some concern is that Plymouth would not pay North Country Council anything up front. What about after up front?
Oh, absolutely. Well, typically, the Community Development Block Grant Program, we're applying, you would be applying for $140,000. The net amount of that, after the administrative costs are assumed by the town, the grant administrator, and the grant writer, typically come to about $20,000, so we would get about $120,000. The grant writer is not paid, the grant administrator is paid through Community Development Block Grant funds. These are not funds that need to be coming up without any backing from the town of Plymouth. And when we do a Community Development Block Grant application, I say our grant writer, they put in typically around $20,000, sometimes $25,000 of that is used for grant administration and grant writing and the town of Plymouth's administrative fees that may occur as a result of that, including the actual ads that you would be putting to advertise the public hearing.
Questions? Dick, any questions?
I guess just one question. There's always a lot of sort of alphabet-named programs that states have. I mean, I'm just thinking about jobs being created. Madrid administers, I think it's the Economic Revitalization Zone,
Yep.
business
Yes,
and
yeah.
tax credits. I mean, is that something that would sort of fit as a nice overlay for this center, do you think?
I think so, just because, keep in mind, one of the things that we're doing with this incubator facility is hosting businesses during their startup or higher growth phase. And then typically within 3 to 5 years, you graduate or ease them out of the facility to make space for other entrepreneurial firms. Where are those businesses going to be going? I will mention that according to the National Business Incubation Association, 84% of businesses that graduate from an incubator remain local. And that's not a surprise when you consider they've established relationships locally, their vendors are perhaps local, their employees are local. They're not generally going to pick up and move because the most important part of their business are generally their employees. Having said that, where do these businesses go? If they are looking for Class A office space within the town of Plymouth, that is pretty limited. If they're looking for a healthy variety of space to put their business, is there an adequate variety of industrial or office, perhaps even wet lab space within the community? There really isn't. I don't want to lead you with unrealistic expectations, but I do want to alert you that if a business is looking to come to Plymouth and or they want to expand or they want to move out of our incubator and into other space locally, think about your own community and think about the inventory of available spaces. Think about the condition of those spaces. Think about perhaps the costs of those spaces. Is there an adequate variety? Is there a nice selection in order for a company to have choices? I think you'll find that within the town of Plymouth, those options are rather limited. Perhaps the state's program of creating enterprise zones in communities might be of assistance on that. Even greater assistance, however, would be available building space and as a secondary option, available green space for development.
Charlie? Go ahead, Ray.
I'm a little bit confused. This company that you discussed in the beginning in narrative one, have they currently got 7 employees?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you say the weaning process, so to speak, of getting them out of the center is 3 to 5 years. Seems like I don't know, I spent a lot of time in startups, and 3 to 5 years you were dead if you hadn't made it. I mean, it was that simple. What's the success rate on these things?
According to the National Business Incubation Association, 89% of businesses that start out and graduate from an incubator are still in business. According to the Small Business Administration, 50% of all small businesses that are started fail within 5 years.
though the incubation process significantly raises the success rate because of the hand-holding and the support they get. And we're not, Narrative One might end up being more of an anchor tenant, actually, because we have anchor tenants that may be, that will be permanent in the facility. Haven't really decided what those should be, possibly even a mix of some kind of food service in there as well for the employees, and then a convenient place. It used to be a successful bagel shop in that building, and so something of that sort might make sense. That's beyond where the decisions that have been made at this point. But it could turn out that a company like Narrative One wants to stay and continue to provide that baseline of rent, and then other people come and go. Our hope is that there'll be an industrial park or two built in Plymouth that can accept the growth of these companies and end up then with a growth path for growing their business and staying in town.
Ray, did you have another question?
No, but Madam Chairman, to move it along, based on what we've heard here this evening and previous updates that we've had, and an awareness that the Grafton County Economic Development Council has been very successful in both leading and managing the development of the Dartmouth Regional Technical Center over there, which is the incubator project with Dartmouth, demonstrating they do have the capabilities to undertake stuff that is new and different. I would move that we do establish a public hearing for a community development block grant application, and that we try to schedule that for our June 11th meeting.
Just wanted to see if, Paul, did you have a question before we
Yes.
take a vote?
Mark, will the financing that's coming in for the funds for the grant be running through our finance department?
No, you will be accepting the money in bulk form, if you will, and then those funds will be turned over to the GCEDC for construction-related purposes.
In a bulk dollar amount or invoiced
I believe those will be invoiced,
through our finance department?
if that's how you do it internally. And then you bill CDFA, but you will not pay us until you get money. That's a standard operating practice for the Community Development Block Grant. Oftentimes, for example, we will do loans, provide loans for businesses as a result of block grants coming to us from a municipality or county. We typically will not close on those loans until the municipality has collected the money from CDFA and they turn it over to us.
But the town hall staff will be handling,
And you will be able to have, like I say, I think it's $1,000 or $2,000 of administration to cover any prospective time that you do writing checks and invoices.
now, we were told on our previous grant that we were going to get $20,000, and then last week we were told $8,000 out of the 20 goes towards fees. Is this a clear $1,500 to $2,000 that we'll be receiving, or will we be paying fees out of that $1,500?
This will not be a net loss to the town of Plymouth in any way, shape, or form. You will get this money as a result of work that is done internally, and you will be paid by the Community Development Finance Authority. Typically, in those cases, for example, let's say it's a $100,000 grant, and that's for 5 jobs, and we would be making out a loan or using money for construction that comes to a net of $80,000. Typically, you would apply to you would then put an invoice when everything is ready to CDFA for $100,000, and then you would then write a check to us for $80,000, and you would keep that 20 for your own administration and your own administrator, as well as $4,000 for the grant writer, and then $2,000 for your own staff and whatever work that they do.
We're not talking about a large number of invoices.
No,
with these
no,
contracts,
no.
Where we're doing weekly invoices.
No.
It's not going to be construction invoices.
No.
We're going to be issuing a lump sum.
It would not. It would not be flood. No, it would not. I understand where you're coming from.
private IRS audit. Who pays for that?
That would come out of whatever you have for administration, part of your administrative costs.
$5,000.
Okay. For your entire grant monies, or?
For the IRS audit.
Okay. As a result of this one grant?
Because of this is what's been happening, because of the federal money.
That's a new number that I haven't heard from other municipalities with the Community Development Block Grant, but we will get back to you by the time of the public hearing. I think you'll find that that is a result of those stimulus money for better buildings.
And that could have been the time.
Yeah. We're using stimulus monies for the expansion of our incubator in Lebanon, and it has significant amount of administrative fees and work associated with it that you would not normally have with other regular grants. So this is something that is going to be much easier than apparently what you've been going through.
Are you recommending any administrator?
I would prefer Pat Garvin. Again, she has a history of successfully writing these grants, and she's someone that I've tapped to actually write it. I would respectfully submit that because of that time and her knowledge about this project, that she also be, North Country Council be solely sourced to administer this.
And I would be receiving that money before I would have to pay her?
Yes, yes. And us too.
Any other questions?
I would second the motion.
So it has been moved and seconded that we schedule the public hearing for June 11th. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we will go ahead with the public hearing and apply for the grant.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we really do think that the incubator is a great project.
Absolutely. Absolutely. After what you've been through. All right. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have no unfinished business. Do we have any public comments this evening? Any comments from the public? There being none, and we have nothing to discuss in non-public this evening. And with that, have I a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Charlie and seconded by Mike that we adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned.